Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutoring Test Prep. My name is Kyle. I am a test prep professional and I have been tutoring SAT for over 3 years. I also scored an 800 on the SAT Math twice now. Today I will be providing a full walkthrough of the digital SAT Math practice test number 4. Let's get started with Module 1. Okay, so for this question, I'm going to do x plus 20. But they tell us x equals 7, so we're going to replace x with a 7. And we do 7 plus 20, which is 27. And that gives us answer choice C. All right. Okay, for this one, the concept that they're testing you on is outliers. Okay. So if you add a big outlier, so a point to the far right of the data, or you take away a small outlier, a point to the left of the data, that pulls the mean up. Think about it, right? If you've got a 2, a 3, and a 4, and then you toss in like a 500, it's going to make the mean way bigger. Similarly, if you take away a really tiny number, the same thing happens. Now, if you add a small outlier or remove a big outlier, so add a really small number or remove a really big number, that pulls the mean down, makes it smaller. So you notice in this one, we've got 5,999,13, 5,999,13, 5,999,13, and then there's this 27. This 27 is much bigger than the rest of the data, so it's a big outlier. And it was added, so we added a big outlier. So the mean is going to go up. So the mean of data set Y is greater than the mean of data set X. And you see they put in the answer choices the mean of X on the left side. So let's flip this inequality. So mean of X is less than mean of Y. And that is answer choice B. The mean of data set X is less than the mean of data set Y. I want to point out this isn't what they were testing you on or expecting you to do, but if you got stuck on this or you just wanted to check your answer, you could use the mean function in Desmos to find the mean of each of those lists very easily. So mean of 5, 9, 9, 13. And then we do mean of 5, 9, 9, 13, 27. And you can see the second one is 12.6, which is bigger than the first one. So the mean of Y is greater than the mean of X. And then the reverse of that is the mean of X is less than the mean of Y. So Desmos kind of backs that up. Just want to let you know that that function was there. That could be helpful for, maybe it's not that helpful for this question, but it could be helpful for another question maybe, or if you just wanted to, like I said, if you just wanted to check your answer. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so this is a similarity statement. This right here. And the order of the letters tells you the order of the letters tells you the corresponding sides and the corresponding angles. So you got to remember what this is testing you on is that for similar triangles, corresponding angles are equal. Corresponding angles are equal. That's what's being tested on here. And the corresponding side lengths are proportional. So corresponding angles are equal, and the corresponding side lengths are proportional. So the order that they show up in the similarity statement tells you the equivalent angle. So P equals S, Q equals T, and angle R equals angle U. So it says angle Q is 18. So let's label that. And then it's a right triangle, so 180 degrees minus 90. So angle P is the complement, so 90 minus 18. And we get 72 degrees. And now, remember, just kind of off to the side, angle P equals angle S, angle Q equals angle T, and angle R equals angle U. And we got that again from the similarity statement, the order in which the letters come in. The first two go together, then the middle ones go together, and then the last ones go together. So T is equal to 18 because it corresponds, because it's equal to angle Q, and then S is equal to 72. And the question is asking us for angle S. So that's 72. So the answer is 72. And that is B. All right. Let's keep moving. Okay, so for this one, the rate at which it says it wants you to find how much propellant did the rocket burn each second. So that should sound like a rate to you. So rate is delta y over delta x. In this case, it says kilograms each second. So each means divide. So we're going to do the change in kilograms divided by the change in seconds, or the change in time, right? So the change in kilograms is 467,000 minus 362,105. And the change in seconds, it says exactly 21 seconds after launch. So 21 minus 0. So just 21. And that gives us, if you type that in a calculator, 4,995 kilograms per second. So I would just type that whole fraction bar into a calculator, either on your TI-84 or in Desmos. Remember, in Desmos, you just press the slash, the thing below the question mark key, to pull up a fraction bar. So we get 4,995, and that is answer choice A. And again, whenever you see each or per on the test, that means to divide. That's just a units thing. All right, so 4 is A. Let's keep going. Okay, systems of equations. This can be done straight on Desmos, easy peasy. You just type it in. So I'll demonstrate that for you. So you really don't need to do this one by hand, but I'll show you anyway, just so that you guys learn the concepts you need to know for the test in case you get a harder question. So 4x equals 20, and negative 3x plus y equals negative 7. And now, okay, I can't really see where it crosses. Let me zoom out. Oh, it's over there. Okay, so let me zoom in. And you should really bring a mouse to the test so that you could do this more easily. This is really hard to do on the trackpad. So I see it intersects here. So I'm just going to click on it. And it tells me the point of intersection is 5, 8. So let me go back to my work and write that down. So 5, 8. And it wants me to know, what is the value of x plus y? Okay, so x plus y is equal to 5, x is 5, and y is 8. So we get 13. And that is answer choice C. Now, for this one, we could do substitution or elimination. I think substitution works really well. So I'm going to get x by itself. I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals 5. Now I'm going to substitute it into here. So I'll get negative 3 times 5 plus y equals negative 7. So that's negative 15 plus y equals negative 7. And now I add 15 to both sides, and I get y equals 8. And you see we also get 5 comma 8. That just maybe took a little longer. So x plus y is still 5 plus 8, which is still 13. So yeah, pretty much any systems of equations question that's like this, where all you need to do is find the solution or the solutions. I would not bother doing that. You can just use Desmos, and it makes it a lot easier. Okay, and I'm learning new stuff about Desmos all the time, so hopefully that comes across in the videos. All right, 6. Okay, so it wants to know how many hours does each online training course, how many more hours does it take than each on-site training course? So the number of hours, so the on-site training course is X, right? So the number of hours for each of those is the coefficient, which is 10, okay? Because 10 hours per course times the number of courses would give you hours. And we want it to have hours because the 85 is in units of hours. And the same thing for the y. So the y is the number of online. So the coefficient of that tells us how many hours per each online course. So to find how much more, we just do the difference between them. So difference equals 15 minus 10, which equals 5. And that is the answer. So 5 more hours per course for the online training. And I'm going to put 5 in the box here. And that is our answer. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so first of all, there's 2 ways to do this, and I'm going to show you both. So for starters, for a square, you should just know, and you should have this memorized, that the area is equal to s squared, and the perimeter is equal to 4 times s. So the side of square x is 12. So the perimeter of square x is 4 times 12, because it's 4s. So 4sx. So 4 times 12, which is 48. And now it says the perimeter of square y is 2 times the perimeter of square x. So the perimeter of square y is equal to 2 times 48, which is 96. And then the perimeter of square y equals 4 times its side, and then 96 equals 4 times its side. And then you divide by 4, and you get the side of y is equal to 24. And that is answer choice D. Now, the other thing that they were testing you on here, a slightly faster way to do it, is that the ratio of the perimeters is equal to the ratio of the sides. So the perimeter scale factor, all squares are similar. All squares are similar, just like how all circles are similar. So the perimeter scale factor, the linear scale factor and the perimeter scale factor are equal. That's just true for similar shapes. So the perimeter scale factor is 2, so that means the linear scale factor is 2. So sy is just equal to 2 times sx, which is equal to 2 times 12, which is 24. So that was another way to do it. So maybe we'll talk about this more another time or later in the video. I talked about this in one of the previous ones. So the area scale factor is equal to the linear scale factor squared. And then the volume scale factor is equal to the linear scale factor cubed. I talked about that in a previous video, and I'll talk about it again if a question comes up that asks it. But what this question testing you on was that the perimeter scale factor is just equal to the linear scale factor. So you see, like, the perimeter is just equal to the linear, and then the area scale factor, you have to square it, kind of like s squared, and then the volume scale factor, you have to cube it, kind of like volume equals s cubed of a cube. So anyway, you totally could have just did what I did over here, and it wouldn't have mattered. This probably only took like, 20 or 30 seconds longer anyway, so it's not that big a deal. All right, so 7 is D. Okay, 8, according to the model, how many gallons of gasoline are used to drive each mile? Okay, so you see that word each again. That tells you division. That tells you got a rate. Okay, so rate is slope. So the slope is the rate of change. So the slope is negative 0.05 gallons per mile, which if you just rephrase that with grammar, it means they used positive 0.05 gallons per mile. And again, the slope is, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or in other words, delta y over delta x, change in y over change in x. So it always has units of y over x. So you see how in this problem, the units of y is g, so gallons, and then the units of x is m, which is miles. So it should have units of gallons per mile. Anyway, so gallons per mile or gallons each mile, those are interchangeable. So yeah, so we just kind of make it positive using grammar. That's why it became positive. So it's kind of like saying, like, I lost 5 apples or I gained negative 5 apples. It's like, it's just two different ways of saying the same thing. Anyway. Okay, so 8 is A. All right, absolute value equation. Okay, guess what? If you forget how to solve absolute value equations, you can solve it right away. You can solve any equation on the test, any equation on the entire test on Desmos. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. So y equals left-hand side, so absolute value, and to press that, you do shift and then the key above enter. That's where the vertical line is. So 4x minus 4, and then shift, and then the key above enter. And then I'm going to do y equals 112. And I can't see where it intersects, so I'm going to zoom out using my scroll wheel. And I'm going to zoom out. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we have x equals negative 27 and x equals 29. Okay, let me go back and write that down. So x equals, so Desmos, so x equals 29 and x equals negative 7, negative 27. So x minus 1 would be 29 minus 1, which is 28. And then x minus 1 would be negative 27 minus 1, which is negative 28. And it wants the positive value, so 28. And that's our answer. So now don't get me wrong, you have to know how to solve these by hand just in case you get a conceptual question. But again, if I was panicking on the test, that would have been a really easy way to do it without messing it up. Okay, so now let's go over how to do it. So first, I would recognize that they want x minus 1. And you see, I can factor this guy. So if I factor out a 4, I get x minus 1. So how you tackle absolute value equations is if you have absolute value x minus 2 equals -4, and then if you have absolute value x minus 2 equals 0, and then if you have absolute value of x minus 2 equals 6. So you always get the absolute value by itself, and then you figure out if the thing on the right is negative, 0, or positive. If it's negative, there's no solution because absolute value can never be negative. If it's 0, there's one solution, and all you do is drop the bars. So x minus 2 equals 0, add 2, I get x equals 2. If it's positive on the other side, once you get the bars by themselves, it has two solutions, and to solve it, you do x minus 2 equals 6, and then you do another one where you do x minus 2, and then you slap on a negative, so -6. So I get x equals 8, or x equals plus 2 is -6, so -4. And maybe they would ask you for the sum, so the sum would be 8 plus -4, which would be 4. I would always go back, especially on these ones, and plug it back in just to make sure it works. So 8 minus 2 is 6, absolute value of 6 is 6. Good. -4 minus 2 is -6, the absolute value of -6 is 6. Good. So make sure you understand this table so that you know how to solve all the different types. Again, if all they ask for is x or something else, you can just type it in Desmos and get the answer, as we just saw. Okay, so now there's two cases. So 4x minus 1, because it's positive, equals 112, or 4x minus 1 equals -112. And if you divide both sides by 4, you get x minus 1 equals 28, or x minus 1 equals -28. And you see we want the positive version, so this is the answer. So 28 is our answer. Two ways to do it. Okay, good. Okay, so here, whenever you see in terms of the thing in front of it, you want to get by itself. So we want to get x by itself. And how I'm going to do equation like this is I'm going to cross multiply. So I'll do that one. Those two multiplied together equals those two multiplied together. So 1 times y, that's just y. And then 11x times 7b, that's just 77bx. And we want to get x by itself, so we're going to move this to the other side, and because it's being multiplied, we're going to do the opposite operation, so we're going to divide both sides by 77b, and we get 77b, or sorry, y over 77b equals x, and we like to get the thing we want by itself on the left side, so we're going to flip this equation, and we get x equals y over 77b. And that is answer choice C. These are called literal equations. There's really no way to be really good at these without just doing them over and over and over and over and over again. So here we use cross multiplication. Great. Okay, so it wants us to find it basically wants us to find the slope, because m is the slope in mx plus b, right? And this is just mx plus b, but with the y-intercept of -28. So they just want us to find the slope. So the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can use whatever points you want. I'm going to use these two. And remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1. So 137 minus 82 over 15 minus 10. And if you plug that in a calculator, you get m equals 11. And that is the answer. Not really super helpful for this question, but I want to show you guys that you can also use Desmos to find any equation of a line from a table using what's called regression. So I'll show you how to do that now. So I'm going to refresh, and then I'm going to insert a table. So you click on this plus and then click on table. And I'm going to put all the x's in, so 10, 15, and I'm using the arrow keys to navigate this table. Don't press enter, press the arrow key. So I'm pressing down on the arrow key. 25, now I'm going to press right and then go up, up, up. And 82, 137, 192, 247. I don't think I mentioned this in the other videos. I must have just learned about this. So I'll try to, I think I'm going to make some separate videos where I go over all these kinds of little things that are helpful for the questions on Desmos. So I'll make some shorter, like 5 or 10 minute videos on that. Anyway, so okay, so we're done with that. Those are all right. Hopefully I typed those in correctly. And then we do y1 tilde, which is in the top left of your keyboard, mx1 plus b. And you see it tells us the parameters m equals 11 and b equals negative 28, which is what they told us, right? So b is negative 28 and the slope is 11. So m equals 11, b equals negative 28. And then if you wanted to write down the equation of the line, you would do mx plus b, 11x minus 28. So again, the answer is 11. Using the slope formula was probably easier there, but maybe for another question, that would be a little bit faster. So I figured I'd mention it. Another question where you don't really, you could just use Desmos. You really don't need to know what's going on to answer it. So, all right. So we could guess and check on this one if it were multiple choice using Desmos, but it's not. So guessing and checking would be kind of a pain. Anyway, this one isn't very long, so you just have to be careful when you see one of these and you see a minus sign. You have to remember to distribute the minus sign. So first, let's write down 5x cubed minus 3, and then distribute the minus sign. So negative 1 times negative 4x cubed, that's plus 4x cubed. And then negative 1 times 8, that's minus 8. So now you do the highest power first. So combine the like terms, so things that end in the same stuff. So these guys both have x cubes. So we're going to do 5x cubed plus 4x cubed, which is 9x cubed. And then I'm going to cross these guys out just to indicate that I already took care of them. And now negative 3 and negative 8, those are like terms, so that gives you negative 11. And you see it's bx cubed minus 11. So see how ours looks the same? So b is 9. So b is equal to 9. Let me write that a little nicer. And that is the answer, 9 for 12. Great, so yeah, just make sure when you subtract polynomials that you distribute the negative sign and write it down. If you do it in your head, odds are you're going to get it wrong. So great. And if this were multiple choice, we could guess and check, but it's not. It's a free response. So okay, so we did get the final answer for that. Yep. So now we're going to go to 13. Okay, so I actually think guessing and checking on Desmos is the best thing to do here. I mean, you could also guess and check the points. Probably about the same. I'm just going to show you how to do it on Desmos just for the sake of learning Desmos. I feel like that's important. So let's do y is greater than 14, and then 4x plus y is less than 18. And so you see how the solution to the system is this kind of top left pizza slice where they're both shaded, where it's like simultaneously red and blue, right? And now I'm going to introduce a point that says x comma 53. So we can't use x because x is like the graphing variable, right? So why don't we call it a comma 53? And then we'll add a slider and we can guess and check quite easily. So let's do, I'm going to go from the bottom up. So 9. Okay, that is not in the solution set, right? Okay, let's do 5. Not in the solution set. Okay. minus 5. Not in the solution set, not in that top left pizza slice, right? Okay, let's do minus 9. It looks kind of close. Let's zoom in. Oh, it's good. It's good. It's on the left side. It's in that top left pizza slice. So negative 9 for 13. That's the answer. To me, that was the easiest way to do it. So Desmos and just guess and check. I think for a lot of these systems of inequalities questions, that's the easiest thing to do because checking it pictorially is much easier to me than doing the arithmetic. If you were going to check it using the arithmetic, you would basically have to plug all of these values along with 53 into this bottom inequality and see if it's correct. So 4 times negative 9 plus 53, etc., etc. So let me just do it really quick. 4 times negative 9 plus 53. That would be 17, which is less than 18, and that is true. If you did it for the other ones, you would get inequalities that are not true. So I'm not going to go through it, but you can plug those numbers in if you want. I think doing the picture is much easier. All right, 14. So this is the equation. Unusual time periods. Y equals A times B to the T over N. A is the starting amount, or the initial amount. B is the growth/decay rate, so it's the number that your Y values are getting multiplied by. And N is your interval. How often are they getting multiplied by that? So you definitely got to know this equation. Make sure you know what all those letters mean. I talk about this more in one of the previous videos. Again, I'll repeat it one more time. A is the starting amount. B is the growth/decay rate. That's the amount that your Y values are getting multiplied by. T is just time, so that's basically just X. And N is the interval. How often is that growth rate or that decay rate being fully applied? So it says initially there were 300,000. So that's the starting amount. Initial means start. So A equals 300,000. And then it says the number of cells double. So that tells you B is 2. And then every 3 hours. So it happens every 3 hours. So that tells you the interval N is 3. So let's write this down. So 300,000 doubles. So that means multiply by 2. So B is 2. And then T over N. So every 3 hours. So every what? That's your N. So every 3 hours. T over 3. So that's the equation. So now it says, what will that be after 15 hours? So you just plug in 15 into your equation. So 300,000 for time. 2 to the 15 over 3. And now you can just type that in your calculator and you should get 9600000 cells. And that is answer choice D. So you just had to know that equation and plug in the numbers really quickly. I don't know, just as another quick example, let's say I had 50 cells and they were tripling every 8 hours. There are harder ones than this, but I don't want to spend too much time on this one question. So it would starting with 50. So A is 50, tripling, that means multiply by 3. So B would be 3. And then T is just T, and then the interval is 8 hours. So you divide by 8. So that would be the equation for this one. Hopefully you guys are starting to see it. There are harder versions of this, and you have to understand it better than this. But this is all we needed to know for this question. So I don't want to go off on a tangent because then the video will be 4 hours instead of 3 hours. So, all right, so let's keep going. So 14 is D. Okay, 15, it says, what is the best interpretation of the y-intercept? Okay, so the y-intercept is here, and it is 0, 9. And it's basically saying 0, and then what's the units of x? Let's see. X represents the number of years since the end of 1992. Okay, 0 years since the end of 1992. So, and then 9,000, or like in words, because you see how it says Y in thousands, a company sent to its customer. So, or 9,000 catalogs sent to customers. Okay. So you can kind of, once you have that written down, you can kind of very quickly, easily cross out the wrong answers. So um, this one says during the first 10 years. What? No, it's the amount 0 years since the end of 1992. I don't know where the 10 came from. So no, that's wrong. Okay. And this other one says, I don't even need to read any of that. It says 90. We just talked about how it either needs to be written as 9,000 using words or 9,000 using numbers. So, yeah, so that's wrong. That doesn't even have the right number as the y-intercept, so that's wrong. 9, I don't even need to read the rest of this. 9, that is not the correct number. Remember, we have to read the units, and it says thousands, so it's 9,000, or in numbers 9,009, comma 000. So that is neither of those, so that is wrong. That's probably the most tempting trap answer. And D, okay, so it says at the end of 1992, so 0 years since the end of 1992, so basically at the end of 1992, it was either 9,000 in words or 9,000 in a number, and it's got 9,000 in a number, so that's the answer. Yep. Yeah, so to interpret any point, you just write down the x-coordinate and then write down the units after it. And you write down the y-coordinate and then the units after it, and you get that from the question. It says it in the question. Y in thousands, blah, blah, blah. X represents the number of years, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so normally, so let's go over how to do it by hand. Okay, so this guy is to the 7th, x to the 9th, y to the 9th. Notice how they're both to the 9th, so I could kind of not factor, but reverse distribute the 9 and write parentheses xy to the 9. And now fractional exponents, bth root of x to the a is equal to x to the a over b. So for example, x to the 7/4 would be the 4th root of x to the 7. Another one, let's say I had x squared and I took the cube root. That would be x to the 2/3. So see how the power always goes on top and then the root always goes on the bottom. So that's something you got to know. They test on this all the time. So I could rewrite this as xy to the power over root. So 9/7. And that is answer choice B. Okay, so usually for equivalent expressions questions, I would just graph it on Desmos as well. That's another way you could do it. And so guess and check. I would just graph it using guess and check. But for whatever reason, if you go to type this in, the original. So, by the way, if you go in here, the root with a different power is like really deep in the menu. It's like somewhere down here. Okay. And so let's say I did 7th root x to the 9, y to the 9, and you see it won't graph it, and I'm actually not sure why that is, but it doesn't want to graph that for whatever reason. So we can't solve this by graphing. However, we can maybe make it x1, y1, and then um, hold on. There we go. I just wanted to put it in order. So why don't we make, I don't know, it says they're both positive. So why don't we just make x1 2 and y1 3, and then we get some big messy decimal, and then we'll type in all the other answer choices and until we get that. So x1, y1 to the 7/9. That's A. Okay, we don't get the same thing. So that's wrong. Let's get rid of that. So x1, y1 to the 9/7. Oh, we get 10.011. All right. Very good chance that's the answer. And if you typed in, I'm not going to do it, but if you typed in C and D, you would get a different number. So see how I got 10.011 and I got 10.011? That tells me it's the same. So as long as you pick valid numbers, that should work. And you can do that for any equivalent expressions question. Just plug in numbers and guess and check if it's multiple choice. Again, only if it's multiple choice. So you still have to understand these concepts, because what if you get a student free response question and you have to do that? So you could have just gone through and done process elimination and you would have went, oh, those three are wrong, so it's got to be B. Okay, great. All right, so let's say the 2015 population was X. The 2016 population did a 7% increase. So for percent multipliers, you should give this a Google if you don't know what these are. Okay. So for an increase, you multiply by 1 plus the decimal. And for a decrease, you multiply by 1 minus the decimal. So 7% increase. So to change it to a decimal, you divide by 100. You don't have to do this in your head. You could just do 7 divided by 100 on the calculator, and you get 0.07. Now you're going to do 1 plus that decimal because it's an increase. So 1 plus that decimal. So 1 plus 0.07. And I get 1.07. And again, you do not have to do that in your head. I promise you, if you think you can do it in your head, they're going to give you either really big numbers or really small numbers that are going to make it hard to do it in your head, and they're going to use the answer choices to trick you. So I encourage you to do it very slowly and very methodically, and maybe even use the calculator, right? Okay, so 1.07 times X to apply the 7% increase from 2015 to 2016. So again, it's going this way. So we're going to multiply, not divide. So we're going to multiply by 1.07. And it says it's K times. So all it wanted you to do is find that multiplier, K 1.07 times X. So K is equal to 1.07. And that is answer choice C. So make sure you know percent multipliers. You can find like a billion worksheets on this. You could watch a YouTube video on it. Just please, please, please make sure you practice it. This is like classic, like 5th, 6th, 7th grade stuff that just people in algebra 2, pre-calculus, calculus, they just forget. Okay, and it's on the SAT all the time. So make sure you know it. Okay, so give me 1 second here. And let's look at okay, so this one, systems of equations question. So again, like you can just graph them. So if you're good at typing, this question doesn't take long at all. I mean, if you're bad at typing, maybe don't do this, but if you're good at typing, this question doesn't take long at all. So uh, so let me refresh this. Okay, so we want one with no solution. So that means in the picture, they don't touch, they don't cross at all. So x equals 3, y equals 5. Okay, you see those guys cross right right here. So that is not the answer. We want ones that don't cross. So let's try again. Okay, y equals 6x plus 6. Y equals 5x plus 6. Okay, little unsure. Oh, yep, it looks like they do overlap. See, they do cross, and they cross right here. Okay, so that one's not right, so you could cross that out. Let's look at C. Y equals 16x plus 3, and y equals 16x plus 19. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. I'm not really sure if they intersect or not. I'm going to zoom back in. Oh, okay, these look parallel, so it looks like they're never going to cross no matter what. Yep. And so this is our answer. Let's just confirm that D is wrong. So y equals 5, and y equals 5x plus 5. Okay, we see, yep, those guys cross, so those also have one solution. And we want one that says no solution. So our answer is C. So if you were going to do this by hand, let's say it was not multiple choice, okay? The concept that they're testing you on here is linear systems. So I'll just briefly go over it really quickly off to the side. So if you have y equals mx plus b and y equals mx plus b, okay, you could have no solution, one solution, or infinitely many. And again, we kind of already saw this, but no solution looks like this, one solution looks like this, and infinitely many looks like this. It's just one line on top of itself. So no solution, they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. All you know about one solution is that they have different slopes. So different slopes. You don't know anything about the y-intercept, so don't say anything about that. And for infinitely many, you have the same slope and the same y-intercept. They test you on this table all the time. You have to have this table memorized. So I'll pause for a second. If I were you, I would maybe pause this video and write that down. Okay, back to the question. So it says no solution. So as we just talked about, that means they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. And so I look at all these really quickly and I go, okay, all right, so, oh, the slope is 16, the slope is 16, same slope. Okay, let's check the y-intercept. 3 and 19. Oh, different y-intercepts. There we go. This one has the same slope, different y-intercepts, and the other ones don't. So that is how you would tell it's C if you were going to do it by hand. Again, if you had no idea what was going on in this question, I would just type all these in. It's like, sure, it'll take about a minute, but like you'll get it right, and a minute isn't that long anyway. It's like you have about a minute per question, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'd have to do the math on that. I can't remember how much time per question you have. Anyway, all right, so let's move on to 19. So give me 1 second. Okay, this is a really interesting question. I haven't seen this on the SAT maybe ever in all the time. Maybe one question about this, and I have a feeling this is something they're going to ask about a lot. So, so you first have to understand what an arithmetic and a geometric sequence is. So why don't we go over that really quickly? Not in a ton of detail. So there's two types of a sequence is just a list of numbers that follow a pattern. Okay. Well, technically it's just a list of numbers. So arithmetic sequence would be like 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, so you see how it's getting added or subtracted by a constant amount. Geometric, that would be like 2, 6, 18, 54. Okay, so see how that's getting multiplied by a constant amount? So times 3, etc. And this one is plus 2, plus 2, plus 2. And the equation you have to know for an arithmetic sequence is a sub n equals a sub 1 plus d times n minus 1. And for a geometric sequence, it's a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. So I'm going to put boxes around these equations. You have to, I guess, just have these memorized. I guess this is just fair game for the SAT now. You can figure it out using logic, but it's probably going to be easier if you just remember these. So a sub 1 is the first term. N is just n. Okay. So if you want to find the 100th term, you would set n equal to 100. And d is the common difference. So a sub n, a sub 1, the first term for this one is 4. So we're going to make that 4. And then d is the common difference. So d is one of the numbers minus the preceding number. So for example, 10 minus 8, I get 2. So if you want to think about it conceptually, it's the number that's being added over and over again. So plus 2 times n minus 1. And that would be the equation for that one. Over here, very similar, a sub 1 is the first term. So here a sub 1 is 2. So we would write a sub n equals 2. And then the common ratio is one of the terms divided by the preceding term. So for example, 18 divided by 54, that would give me 3. If you want to think about it conceptually, you could just think about it as the number you're multiplying by, which is 3. It could also be a fraction. Similarly, instead of adding positive numbers in the arithmetic sequence, you could be adding negative numbers. It's the same idea. You could give this a Google, look it up in an Algebra 1, Algebra 2 book. You'll find lots of problems. So I guess this would be 2 times the common ratio is 3 because it's multiplying by 3 to the n minus 1. So hopefully now that I've gone over that, you can add these equations to your notes and you at least understand a little bit how they work. So for this problem, it says the first term is 9. Okay, so that tells us that a1 is equal to 9. And then this guy, each term after the first term is 4 times the preceding term. So that not only tells us it's geometric, it tells us that r, the common ratio, is 4. Remember I said r is like what you're multiplying by? So we're going to do the geometric equation, a sub n equals a sub 1 times r to the n minus 1. Okay, so a sub 1 is just 9, r is 4. Oh, and also a sub n, instead of a sub n, they call it w for some reason. So why don't I call that w? W times 4 to the n minus 1, and that's it. That's it. That's the answer. That's it. So it's like basically like a fact-checked question. It's like if you knew that formula and you knew what a geometric sequence was, this was an arithmetic sequence was, a very easy question. But if you didn't know that, very hard question. Something you could do to kind of improvise is you could write out the first couple terms. So let's say it's like 9 and then times 4 would be 36 and then times 4. And I'm just doing this on a calculator. 144. That's probably enough. And then this would be n equals 1, this would be n equals 2, and this would be n equals 3. So you could now go and like plug in 1 into all of them and see if you get 9, and then plug in 2 into all of them and see if you get 36, and then plug in 3 into all of them and see if you get 144. That would have been a really good way to kind of improvise the answer. Anyway, So yeah, I would just study those formulas and make sure you know them and you understand them, because they're probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they ask this again in a future test. So okay, so 12 less than 6 times another number n. So 6 times another number n, that's 6 times n, or 6n, and then 12 less than that would be minus 12. Okay, little disorienting because the 12 comes first, but in reality you put it after. Okay, so like for example, 5 less than 12, you can probably just kind of mentally go, oh, that's 7, but it's because you did 12 minus 5. So see how we kind of had to put this guy in front and then this guy at the back. So don't let that phrasing kind of confuse you. Anyway, all right, so this guy is 6n minus 12, and it says the minimum value of x is. So the minimum value is the smallest, right? So that should tell you that x is greater than or equal to that thing. So we're actually going to do greater than or equal to for this one, because the minimum value that includes that minimum, and you can also tell there's equal to's from all the answer choices, right? So this part basically tells you x is greater than or equal to. So x is greater than or equal to 6n minus 12. And that's the answer. So these guys are just super wrong. Like, look at this, 12 minus 6n. That is not what that expression is saying. So these guys are out. I could see being a little confused on the direction of the sign. But hey, guess what? At least now you got a solid 50-50 guess, right? And maybe you could plug in some numbers to get a better sense of what's going on even more. Or maybe you could graph it on Desmos or something. I don't know. But yeah, so the minimum value is the smallest. So that means everything else is bigger than it. I know that that might sound counterintuitive, but that's what you do, right? So if I tell you, oh, the smallest value of x is 2, I'm telling you that x must be greater than or equal to 2 because the smallest value is 2, right? So that's just a phrasing thing. And similarly, I'm guessing, let's say this were a question, if it said the maximum value of x is, and then it was something like this, um, you would do x is less than or equal to. So that's kind of what this one is saying, what A is saying, which is not what the question said. So if I said the maximum value of x is blah, 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 you would do, if I said the maximum value of x is 10, you would say x is less than or equal to 10. So anyway, so just some quick interpretation there. I would maybe remember that in case that comes up on a future exam. Wouldn't be surprised. So this one is B. Yep. All right, let's keep going. All right, I've seen these questions a lot, and I came up with a really quick way to figure out how to draw it. So, or how to label it. So first you pick out the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest side. Okay, so I got 20, 48, 52. Okay, 52 is the longest, so that's the hypotenuse. So the missing letter in this hypotenuse tells you the right angle. So TR, so you see how it's missing S? So S is the right angle. That's a really quick way to figure that out. I feel like I should have explained it like that in the previous videos, but alas. So the missing letter tells you that S is the right angle. So we're going to label this one S. And then it doesn't matter where the other ones go. So I'm just going to label it how I want. So R, S, and T. And now you can label the sides and solve the question. So TR is 52. And ST is 48. And RS is 20. Now it says triangle RST is similar to triangle UVW. So remember, the order in which the letters come in tell you the corresponding angles. So the question's asking us about W. So you had to recognize that T is equal to W. So T is equal to W, angle T is equal to angle W, and they want us to find tan of W. So it follows that tan of W would be equal to tan of T if the angles are equal, right? So now to find tan of W, you just find tan of T. And remember, SOHCAHTOA, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. I would look that up, watch a YouTube video if you don't know how to label the opposite, adjacent, etc. So we're looking at angle T, right? Because we want tan of T. So that's this one. So opposite is the one across from the angle of interest. Hypotenuse is the one across from the right angle. And then adjacent is the last one. So this would be adjacent. So we're going to do tangent is opposite over adjacent. OA, opposite over adjacent. So opposite is this one, as we just discussed. Adjacent is this one, as we just discussed. So this is 20 over 48. You can now very quickly simplify that either on your TI-84 by typing it in and then pressing math, enter, enter. Or you can go on Desmos and you could do 20 divided by 48 and then click on this little fraction button over here. And it says 5 over 12. So the answer is 5 over 12 equals tan of W. So I think that kind of trick that I just taught you guys, remember, you find the hypotenuse, and then if it's a right triangle, the missing letter is the right angle. Okay, so TR, so the missing letter is S. So S was the right angle. Very quick way to figure it out. Great, very happy that I realized that. All right, let's keep going. Now this is a hard question, and this requires a lot of prerequisite knowledge. So how you would normally translate a function is you would take it from, again, translate, not transform, just translate. So move it left and right and up and down. You would change it into f of x minus h plus k. H is the amount you're moving left or right, and k is the amount you're moving up or down. So let's say I had f of x and I wanted to move it 2 right and 6 down. Or no, let's do 5 up. Okay. So h would be 2 because it's going right. And then k would be positive 5 because it's going up. If it's going left, that's negative. If it's going down, that's negative. So you could rewrite this as f of x minus 2 because it's minus h plus k, so plus 5. Hopefully that makes sense. You can look this up and do more practice on that. So that's what I did. And so I got y by itself, and then I translated it down using the function notation. So let's go over that. So I'm going to move 10y to the other side, and I get 9x equals 10y plus 19. And now I'm going to move 19 back over, and I get 9x minus 19 equals 10y. And now I'm going to flip it, and I'm also going to divide by 10. So 9x, so that's 0.9x. And then 19 divided by 10, that's 1.9. So now, and that's f of x, let's call it. So g of x, this new function, it says it is translated down 4 units in the xy plane. Okay, so we're not moving left or right, so that means h equals 0. And it's translating down, so that means k equals negative 4. So we're going to do f of x minus h plus k. Okay, so we don't need to worry about this guy. And this guy is going down, so he's negative 4. So he's going to be f of x minus 4, which would be 0.9x minus 1.9, that's f of x, and then minus 4, which would be 0.9x minus 1.9 minus 4, which is minus 5.9. And now to find the x-intercept, what I can do is I can, to find an x-intercept, you plug in y equals 0. So I'm going to make this y equals 0. And then I'm going to solve that equation. So move the 5.9. And then divide both sides by 0.9. And the calculator tells me 59 over 9. And that is the answer. I think there was another way to write it. Let me pull that up really quickly. So yeah, they also would have sected 6.555 or 6.556. But like, why risk rounding it wrong? Like, your calculator will just simplify it for you. Like, I just showed you how to simplify it on Desmos. So why don't you just do that? I feel like that's easier. Like, it's not going to round for you, but it'll do the fractions for you. So it's like, do the fraction. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like. It's more foolproof, right? You're less likely to make a mistake if you just let the calculator do it, right? Okay, so to me, this is the logical way to do it because this is what they teach you in school. This is what they teach you in school if you take Algebra 2, and sometimes they go over it in pre-calc again as well. But they usually learn this in like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, how to do these basic function transformations, and it's f of x minus h plus k. So the College Board did it a different way, and if you read their paragraph, you're going to have no idea what's going on. Okay, so allow me to try to explain it. I had no idea what was going on at first either. So you know how the equation of a circle is x squared plus y squared equals r squared if it's centered at the origin, but then if it's centered somewhere else, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So to transform any implicit relation, so implicit meaning y is not by itself, you can just replace x with x minus h, and you can replace y with y minus k. You could do that for any function. So see here, I just did it for standard form of a line. So I replaced the x with x minus h, and then I replaced the y with y minus k. And that's what they did. And they do a horrible job explaining it. Horrible. Okay, so watch. So again, remember, we're moving down, so k is negative 4. 9x minus 10y equals 19. So we don't need to worry about the x because we're not moving left and right. So 9x minus 10, but we replace y with y minus negative 4, y minus k. In other words, y plus 4. Now that's the new function. So now to plug in, to get the x-intercept, you plug in y equals 0. So I'm going to replace the y with 0. And we get 9x equals negative, or 9x minus 40 equals 19. And you get 9x equals 59. And you get x equals 59 over 9. So you get the same thing. And that was a much faster way to do it. But like, man, I bet just no one knows that. Like, I bet no one knows that. Like, I don't think they teach that to you in school. I didn't know that, and I've been doing this for years. Like, I don't just teach SAT. I teach Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Calculus. I've never seen that before in my life. So, man, that would be really helpful if you get another question like this, right? So remember, if you forget this, I mean, you could do any question like this, right? You could have done it, you could have done an implicit one, an explicit one like this too. Just remember, figure out what h and k are. If it's going right, it's positive. If it's going left, it's negative. K, if it's going up, it's positive. If it's going down, it's negative. And then, yeah, just replace the x with x minus h, and then replace the y with y minus k. That's a foolproof way to do any function transformation that I just learned about from this test. So, wow, okay, I'm glad I know that now. Very tricky question. Okay, great. So let's stop there. That'll be the end of module 1. Okay, this will be the beginning of module 2A. If you don't care about these questions and you went straight to module 2B because you did well in the first module or for whatever reason, or you just don't care, you can skip straight to, using the chapters below, you can skip straight to module 2B. So let's start module 2A. So 7x equals 28. What's the value of 8x? So 7x equals 28. So I'm going to solve this equation, and I get divide by 7, and I get x equals 4. And now I'm going to do 8x, and I'm going to replace it with 4, and I get 32. And that is the answer. Okay. It says she saved 10% of them. So we're going to do 10% of 760. So for a percent of question, what you do is you change the percent to a decimal by dividing by 100. So let me go on my calculator. 10 divided by 100. Okay, so that's 0.1, 0.1. Of means multiplication, so you change that to a multiplication. And now you just go on your calculator, 0.1 times 760, and you get 76. And that is the answer. Okay, a little bit of a tricky rate unit conversion. So we have 42 posters per minute. So when it says per, remember I said per and each, that means divide. So we're going to divide posters per minute. And it wants us to convert it to per hour. So you have to know 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 3,600 seconds in an hour. They're not going to give you those conversion factors. You have to know all three of those, okay? So the one that they're testing us on here is 60 minutes in an hour. Now we set up a parenthesis, and we plug those numbers in such a way that the units cancel. So you see if I do this, the minutes are not on opposite side of the division sign, so they do not cancel. But if I do this, 60 minutes over 1 hour, you see the minutes are on opposite sides, so that means they cancel. So we're left with posters, division sign, which means per hour, which is what we want. So now all you need to do is go to the calculator, 42 times parentheses 60 over 1, and you should get 2520. So the answer is 2520 posters per hour. And let's put that in here. Great. So just always make sure that the units cancel and that when you do a rate, you divide. So see how posters per minute, I did posters divided by minute. If you were going to do miles per hour, that would be miles divided by hour. Great, let's go to 4. Okay, it wants to know group 6. So group 6. All right, let's look at that. And you see that is at about 40. So 40. Okay. All right, lots of grid-ins in a row. The x-intercept of the graph. Okay, so where does it touch or cross the x-axis? Okay, that's right here. That's 7, 0. So x is equal to 7. X, 0. X is equal to 7. So let's put 7. Great. So f of x equals 7x plus 2. So it says x equals 4. So we're going to set x equal to 4. So f of 4 is equal to 7. I'm replacing all the x's with 4. So I get f of 4 equals 28 plus 2. So f of 4 equals 30. So the answer is 30. And not very helpful for this question, but I just want to show you just in case it's helpful for another question. Is you can evaluate functions very quickly on Desmos. So let me type in f of x equals 7x plus 2. And now I could do f of 4, which is 30. And then I could do f of negative 10. And you see I could do this all day. So very helpful. So anyway, you see f of 4 is 30. So that's the answer. It could do the work for you, especially if you had a longer, messier expression with a lot of negative signs and exponents. Might be easier to just type it in instead of doing it by hand. This one was pretty straightforward. You probably want to just do this one by hand, or in the or just in your physical calculator. Okay, great. So 6 is 30. Good. Each side of a square has a length of 45. What is the perimeter? Okay, so we talked about this earlier in the video. You have to know for a square, the area is s squared and the perimeter is 4 times s. So here we want the perimeter. So we're going to do perimeter equals 4s. So perimeter equals 4. The side length is 45. So perimeter equals 180. And that is the answer. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to do this. What I think is the easiest is this new thing I just learned about. Again, something I probably should have known sooner. There's this thing called two-intercept form, which is really good when you have both of the intercepts and nothing else. So it goes like this: x over a, the x-intercept, plus y over b, the y-intercept, equals 1. So the x-intercept is 8 and the y-intercept is 7. So I'm going to write x divided by the x-intercept, which is 8, plus y divided by the y-intercept, which is 7, equals 1. Now to make this equation look nicer, what you could do is you can multiply the whole equation by the least common denominator. So the least common multiple or least common denominator of 8 and 7 is 56. So we're going to multiply the whole equation by 56. And we get 56 divided by 8. Okay, so 7x plus 56 divided by 7, 8y equals 56. Now to find the coordinate d comma 4, you plug that in. So now that you have your equation, so x is d, so d plus 8 times 4 equals 56. So you get 32, and then you add that, you subtract that over to the other side. So 56 minus 32 is 24. So 7d equals 24. And d equals 24 over 7. So that is answer choice C, and that is the answer. That is the correct way to do it. Just to reiterate, you could solve this question using Desmos. I'm really just not, it's not necessarily helpful, but I'm just doing it to show you guys the skills on Desmos so that you can practice doing it just for the sake of it, so that if you get a harder question, maybe it'll help you. Okay, so we make a table, and then we have what, 0 comma 7, and then 8 comma 0, and then we can do a regression. So y1 tilde m x1 plus b, and now it says d comma 4, so y equals 4, and you see they intersect at 3.429, blah, 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 which if you do that on a calculator is, if you do the answer choices on a calculator, you would realize that that's 24 over 7. So that was another way to do it. I don't think it was easier necessarily than what I did, but I don't know. I mean, it might have saved you a little bit of time. Kind of depends on where your strengths are. All right, great. Okay, so for this one, you could type this into Desmos, and then you could type each of these into Desmos one by one to see which one is equivalent. I'm not going to go over that just because I think that just makes it take way longer. So they both have a factor of 5, and they both have a factor of x. So we're going to pull out a 5x. And then, okay, 5x times x gives me 5x squared. So that's that. And then 5x times what gives me negative 50xy squared? Well, 5 times negative 10 is negative 50. And then I have to add x is good, but then I have to add a y squared because there's no y squared. So you could distribute it just to make sure you get the original. And it is A. So I just want to point out to you, if you did want to do this using Desmos, what you could do is you could type in the original, so 5x squared minus 50x y squared. And it won't let me graph it. Yeah, so maybe that wouldn't be a good idea. So maybe you could put oh yeah, maybe that's why it wasn't working, because I didn't have an equal sign. Implicit relations have to have an equal sign, yeah. And then you could type in 5x x minus 10 y squared equals 0. And see how, and you did this, if you do this with all of them, they won't be the same. But see how this one, the blue perfectly replaces the red? That means they're equivalent. So that means it's the answer. I'm not going to do it with the other ones, but prove to yourself that if you do this with the other ones, it won't be the same. So, okay, anyway. All right, so that one's A. F of x equals 5x squared. What's the value of f of 8? So this is like we were just doing. So remember, the thing inside the parentheses is always x. So we're going to replace x with 8. And then you can just type that in a calculator. F of 8 equals 5 times 8 squared, which is 320. We can also do that by typing it into Desmos and evaluating the function that way. I just went over that. I'm not going to go over it again. Went over that earlier in the video. Maybe if it comes up again, I'll do it. Okay, so the College Panda angles chapter has a great picture that summarizes all the stuff you need to know about parallel lines. So there's a bunch of ways to do this, but the fastest way for this one is to recognize that these guys are interior angles, so they're both on the inside of the sandwich. See how they're both on the inside of the sandwich? And then they are on the same side of the transversal. So see how they're both on the same side? So that's called same side interior angles. So same side interior angles are supplementary. That means they add up to 180. So that's the fastest way to do this one. Again, I encourage you to read more about it so that you know all the concepts. And x plus 26, so they have to add up to 180, so equals 180. Now you subtract 26 from both sides and you get 154. So x is 154, and that is answer choice D. So remember, interior means they're on the inside of the sandwich, and then same side means they're on the same side of the transversal, the intersecting line. Great, let's keep going. Okay, I don't know, I guess I thought this was like a trick question or something. So it's got 1 through 14, and it wants to know what's the probability of rolling a 2. So probability is always desired outcomes over total. So there's only 1 2, so there's only one desired outcome, and there's a total of 14 possibilities. So we do 1 over 14, and that's it. Yeah, I'm guessing they just hope people see there's a 2 and that they put 2 over 14. I'm guessing that's the trap answer there that they want you to go for. I don't know. So yeah, that's the answer. All right, let's keep going. Okay, these ones, I always check the y-intercept first. So the y-intercept is positive 3. Okay, and I see right away that these guys have the incorrect y-intercept. They have a negative y-intercept, which can't be right because it's positive. So these guys are wrong. They have the wrong y-intercept. And then B, and now I consider the slope. So the slope, so the line is going up. So that means it has a positive slope. So I don't even need to calculate the slope, because I look at answer choice A and B, and I see, oh, B has a negative slope. So that can't be right. So it must be A, and it is. That is the answer. Great. So check the y-intercept, cross out 2 of them, and then check the slope and cross out the 3rd one. That's how I would tackle these ones. All right. So if you add 56 to each of the values in the data set, the measures of center, mean, and median will get bigger. Hopefully that's obvious because the numbers get bigger, right? So mean and median will go up, right? So the median gets bigger. But if you don't change the orientation of the points, the measures of spread, so standard deviation and range, stuff like that, those stay the same because they're spread out the same, right? Like if I had like 1, 2, 3, the range is 2, but then I add 5 to all of them and I get 6, 7, 8. The range is still 8 minus 6, which is 2, max minus min, right? So you see, if I add the same number, the range stays the same. Same thing with the standard deviation. If you add the same number, the standard deviation stays the same. So the range is the same. And the only one that says the median gets bigger is this one. It says it gets greater. And then it says the range is equal. So that's it. So unless you change the spatial orientation of the points, or maybe you multiply by a number or something so that they get more spread out. But if you add by a number, that only changes the mean, the measures of center. It doesn't change the measures of spread if you add or subtract everything by a number. Okay, great. Let's go to 15. Okay, so 68x plus 85y equals 1258. So what I always do is I always write the units of the thing on the right. So the 1258 is units of dollars. So every term in an equation must have the same units. Think about it. I can't do 2 inches plus 4 miles equals 6 something else. Like that doesn't make any sense. So they all have to have the same units. So this is dollars and this is dollars. Okay. Now, to understand it even further, you have to break it down a little bit more. So first, I want you to appreciate that it says consulting for X hours, and it's asking us about 68. And the 68 and the X are next to each other. So the answer choice must have something to do with consulting, right? And this one says drawing up, it doesn't say consulting, and this one says drawing up, it doesn't say consulting. So these are both just kind of wrong because they just have nothing to do, right? So now let's talk about why one of them is wrong. So X has units of hours, okay? So we're going to break this down a little bit further. So X has units of hours. So you have to think to yourself, what units must the 68 have so that I multiply it by hours and I get dollars? Well, the answer is it would be dollars per hour because the hour would cancel and you would be left with dollars, which is what we have up there, right? So the units of the 68 is dollars per hour. And you see it says here 68 hours, so that's the wrong unit. So there's no way that can be right. So it must be A. Let's check it. $68 per hour, which is what we got. Dollars divided by hour, or per hour. Remember, per means division. Great. So 16 is A, or 15 is A. My bad. Good. All right, let's keep going. Okay, systems of equations question. Guess what? You can just like any system, you can just type it into Desmos and get the answer in about 10 or 15 seconds. So let's do that. So x equals 8, y equals x squared plus 8. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out so I can see where they intersect, and I see they intersect around here, and I click on it, and it says 8 comma 72. Okay, so it intersects at 8 comma 72, and they want the value of y, so y equals 72. So the answer is D. So maybe like 15, 20 seconds. Um, Pretty good. Don't have to really think or anything. Very reliable way to get the answer. Now for this one, for linear quadratic systems, we like to use substitution. We also like to use substitution when one of the letters is by itself. So we're going to substitute this into the other one, and we get y equals 8 squared plus 8. Y equals 64 plus 8. So y equals 72. So that didn't take too long, but let's say you're sitting there and you're nervous and you're not sure what to do. I mean, Desmos is a great fallback, right? Okay, great. So this says f of 0. So remember, the thing inside the parentheses for function notation is almost always x. So we're going to look where x is 0. Okay, that's here. Oh, it crosses the function here. So the y value is 3. So the point 0 comma 3 translates to f of 0 equals 3. And that is the answer. So you just had to, it's just asking you to read the graph when x equals 0. Now this one's a little different. It says, and you could also use Desmos for this one too if you wanted. Maybe I'll go through it. This one, it doesn't say f of 48. It says f of x equals 48. So what you're going to do is you're going to replace this guy with 48. So 48 equals 8 root x. Okay, we want to get the square root by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. And we get 6 equals root x. Now to get rid of the square root, we square both sides. And you get 36 equals x. That's the answer. Okay, so now you could also do this on Desmos. Just to demonstrate, again, it's probably not the best way to do it, but just to demonstrate. So f of x equals 8 square root of x. And then I have f of x equals 48. And I'm going to zoom out so that I can see where it crosses. And I see, oh, it's over here. And I click on it. And I get x is 36. That's what they're asking us for, right? X is 36. So that's just another way to do it. Let me get rid of this so that it's clear for the next one. Wow, we're almost done with 2a. We're doing good. Okay, so I don't know if there's a good way to do point slope on the graphing calculator. I just don't think there is on Desmos. There is on the graphing calculator, but which lots of people don't use. Which, by the way, I should probably open that just in case that comes up. I forgot to open the graphing calculator at the start of the video. All right, so just in case we need that. All right, great. Let's get rid of that. First of all, the slope is negative 1/3, right? So I didn't even realize this when I was doing it, but right away, can't you see that the slope is 13 here and the slope is 9 here? So both those are wrong. So now what you do is you write the partial equation. So y equals mx plus b. So the partial equation would be y equals negative 1/3 x plus b. And now you plug in the point to find the y-intercept. So y is 10, negative 1/3, x is 9. So we get 10 equals negative 3 plus b, and then we add 3 to both sides, and we get 13 equals b. So the full equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 13. So that's how we get answer choice D. You also could have just plugged in 9 comma 10 into both of these and seen if it was true. That would have been another way to narrow it down further without having to do all that work. Anyway, yeah, so I right away just cross off A and B. They don't even have the right slope. Okay, 20. Okay, so we have to write two equations relating the situation. So the first one, it's $80 per adult, $60 per child, and $14.40 total. So we're going to do 80A plus 60C equals 1440. And then it says they can take 21 people at a time. So that means there's a total of 21 adults and children of 21. So we do A plus C equals 21. The second you get to this point, I would just go to your graphing calculator or Desmos and just type it in and get the answers. So that's what I'm going to do. That's going to save a ton of time for this one. I mean, not a ton, but it'll save you at least a solid 20 or 30 seconds. So you can't graph with A and C. So I'm just going to change it to X and Y. So 80X plus 60Y equals 1440. And then X plus Y equals 21. And I can't see where they intersect, so I'm going to zoom out. Oh, they intersect over here. Let me zoom in. And it's, as you can see, it's 9, 12. And remember, I made X was A, so that was the adults, and then Y was C, that was the children. So we go back to here, and we go 9, 12. And that means there was 9 adults, because I made A the first letter, and then C the second letter, so that's 12 children. And the question asked for how many children, so the answer is C, 12 children. Desmos makes that much faster. I'm going to go over how to do it by hand. So you could use substitution or elimination. I'm going to use substitution, and I'm going to substitute for A, so that way I'm just left with C. Makes it go a little faster. So I'm going to subtract C from both sides, and I get A equals 21 minus C. And now I plug that into the other equation. And I get 80 times 21 minus C plus 60C equals 1440. And that gives you 1680 minus 80C plus 60C equals 1440. Combine some of the like terms and you get negative 20C. And then if you subtract 1680 over to the other side, you get negative 240. And now if I divide both sides by negative 20, I should get C equals 12. I'm not that good at arithmetic. I just have this all written down. That was probably, to me, that was the easiest way to do it by hand. You could have used elimination, but to me, that was the easiest way to do it by hand. Again, it's like, once you get to this point, you should be going straight to Desmos or straight to the graphing calculator, because you could type this straight into a graphing calculator. You could type this straight into Desmos. Don't waste your time. "21. How many distinct real solutions does the given equation have?" Okay, well, we can answer this very easily just by graphing the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So let's do that. So y equals 5x squared plus 10x plus 16, and then the other side is y equals 0. Okay, I can't see it. Let me zoom out. Okay, so the quadratic's up there, and it's never going to touch this blue line. Never, ever. Because quadratics just either face up or face down. So it has no solutions. So let's go back to the test. So no solutions. That's D. Yep, 0 solutions. That's it. I'll go over the discriminant really quickly. So the discriminant, this is how you do it by hand. So D equals B squared minus 4AC. So when d is less than 0, there's no real solutions. When d is equal to 0, there's one real solution. And when d is greater than 0, there's two real solutions. So if you haven't written that down already from my previous videos, please write it down now. So you can pause this video and jot that down. This is for quadratics. Okay, so a equals 5, b equals 10, c equals 16, and d equals b squared minus 4ac. So d equals 10 squared minus 4 times 5 times 16. So d equals 100 minus, I don't even know. But if I put it in a calculator, I know I get d equals negative 220. And negative 220 is less than 0. So that means there's no real solution. So that's how you would do it by hand. Much easier to do on Desmos. Probably would take like, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds on Desmos. And then this way would probably take at least 30 to 45 seconds. And there's a chance you'd mess up, right? So, okay, so 21 is D. Okay, shifting a circle, we don't have to think about as much because all we do is just track the center. Just like how if we shift a quadratic, we can just track the vertex. So the equation of a circle, I wrote this before, but it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where each comma k is the center. So you can see for this one, there's no number next to the x, so that means the x coordinate of the center is 0. And then there's this guy, but remember there's a minus sign in this equation. So we have to multiply that guy by negative 1. So it's not, most people would say 0, negative 2. No, it's actually 0, positive 2. And that's probably what the trap answer stems from. So now it says shift it down. So to shift it down, we subtract 4 from y. And we get a new center of 0, comma, negative 2. So now if you do the equation x minus 0 squared plus y minus negative 2 squared for the new circle, and then equals 36 for whatever the radius is, right? Whatever the radius squared is. It's just the radius, shifting it does not change the radius squared. So, and you go x minus 0, oh, that's just x. So x, and then y minus negative 2, that's just y plus 2. And you see that matches. And then again, the radius and the radius squared do not change, so we can just slap on an equal 36. And you see that is answer choice A, and that is the correct answer. So I guarantee you the most common trap answer stems from the fact that 9 out of 10 kids, not 9 out of 10, okay, maybe like, 4, 5, 6 out of 10, something, would put 0, comma, negative 2. They would forget to multiply by the minus sign. So always remember, you have to multiply those numbers inside the parentheses by negative 1 because there are minus signs in this equation. Okay. All right, great. Very good. This concludes module 2A. Okay, let's begin module 2B. So it says 20% responded that they intend to enroll, and then they took a smaller sample. Because they selected it at random, we can generalize it to the population. So we can generalize to the population, which is the 55 students. So we're going to do 20% of 55. To compute that, you change the percent to a decimal by dividing by 100. So 20 divided by 100 on your calculator is 0.2. The of we change to multiplication. 0.2 times 55 gives you 11. So because they took a random sample, we can generalize it to the population. So the expected is always equal to the proportion times n. So in this problem, the proportion was 0.2 and the capital N, the population size, was 55. Okay, so 1 is A. All right. 10 is large box, so that goes with X. Y is 5 is small box, so that goes with Y, small boxes. So you do 10X plus 5Y equals a total of 700. When you see a total, that should make you think addition. So kind of right away, this is like a product, right? So these guys are kind of wrong. And the problem with A is the numbers are mixed matched with the coefficients. They're not with the correct thing. So large boxes has to go with large boxes. Small boxes has to go with small boxes. So that one's wrong as well. So 2's got to be B. All right, great. All right, we talked about how to tackle these ones. So earlier in the video. So first you find the y-intercept, and then you look at all the y-intercepts, and you see that, okay, it's a positive y-intercept, like positive 13 or 14. That's got a negative y-intercept. That's got a negative y-intercept. So there's no way those can be right. So those are both wrong. Now you look at the slope. So you don't need to calculate it. So this guy is going downward. So the slope is negative. Okay, so this guy has a positive slope. So there's no way it can be him. So it must be B. It's got a positive y-intercept and a negative slope. It's the only one that has that. You don't even need to really compute them. Just use process elimination. All right, so I'll go through this one again. Again, pick out the intercepts, and then you can use 2 intercept form. I'm not sure what they did in the solution for this, the College Board. So x over a plus y over b equals 1. So x divided by a. So x divided by the x-intercept, which is 8, plus y divided by the y-intercept, which is 7, equals 1. And you multiply by the least common denominator. So the least common denominator of 8 and 7 is 56. So we multiply by 56 just to make it look nicer and make the math easier. So we get 56 by 8, so 7x plus 8y equals 56. Now we plug in d comma 4. So 7d plus 8 times 4. You get 32, and then you subtract 32, and you get 7d equals 24. So d equals 24 over 7. I showed this before because this was on module 2a, but you can also go and regress these guys to get the equation, and you could just graph it to, so what is it? 0, 7, and 8, 0. And you can regress it y1 tilde mx1 plus b. And then we want y to be equal to 4. So y equals 4. And you get 3.429, which is just the rounded version of 24 over 7. So that was another way to do it. All right, let's keep going. Okay, this one, oh my God, this one is so good for Desmos, so good. So you can do a quadratic regression as well. I just learned about this, guys. If I knew this sooner, I would have put it in the previous videos, okay? This is really helpful, like really helpful. Like, look, we have a table and then a bunch of equations that all look the same. So regressions are perfect for that. So let's go to Desmos and do it. So insert a table, and I get -1, 0, 1, and I'm gonna do 10, 14, and 20. And now I type in y1. So notice how they all have standard form. So we're going to type in standard form, ax1 squared plus bx1 plus c. And it tells me a is 1, b is 5, and c is 14. So that means the equation is y equals x squared plus 5x plus 14. Holy smokes. Oh my god, that made this question like a walk in the park. Like I can't stress this enough. You really want to make sure you know how to do regressions. It's not helpful all the time, but when it is, man, it really shines. So if you're going to do this by hand, you first recognize that, like organically, right? You first recognize that x is 0. So that means this is the y coordinate of the y-intercept. So when you have standard form, c is the y-intercept. So c is the y-intercept. So that means in this problem, c is 14 because when x is 0, y is 14. That's the definition of y-intercept. X is 0, right? So c is 14, and you look at all these, and that doesn't really help. So we're kind of still in big trouble here. But at least we have ax squared plus bx plus 14. Now, so you already used this point. So now you could plug in these other points and get like a system of equations in terms of a and b, and you could solve for a and b. Now that's really, really complicated. Probably an easier way, if you don't know how to use Desmos, would just be to, either mentally in your head or take out your graphing calculator or just type in a Desmos, like set x equal to -1 and see if you get 10. Set x equal to -1 and see if you get 10. And then just use process elimination. Just keep doing that. And then once that one's done, you plug in 0 and, well, I mean, you already used this one, but plug in 1 and see if you get 20. Plug in 1 and see if you get 20. You know what I'm saying? That's probably what they intended most kids to do. They probably don't expect you to plug in the points and set up a system of equations. Like, that takes way too long. Don't do that. Don't do that on question 5, okay? Don't do that on question 5. Again, the easiest way by far for this one, oh my god, I put 3 exclamation points next to it, is to just use the Desmos regression. Okay, great. So let's move on. So 5 is D. Okay, I mean, you can use Desmos for this one too. But you could also just plug in A. So f of A equals 10, so y equals A plus 15 over 5. This is x and this is y. Okay, so that's where we got that from. So y goes here and then x goes here. And then multiply by 5, 50 equals A plus 15. And then subtract 15 and we get A equals 35. And that is the answer, so we get C. And we could do this on Desmos. It's probably not that much easier, but let's say you just weren't seeing what to do. We could do that. So f of x equals, type in the fraction bar first. So the question mark, x plus 15 over 5. And then you type in f of a equals 10. And you see that they intersect over here, and you click on it, and you get x or a is 35. So that was another way to do it. Just in case you didn't see what to do, but you really got to understand how to do this substitution. You really got to understand that. Okay. So for this one, you have to recognize that x and y are vertical angles, so they're equal. So x equals y. So 6k plus 13 equals 8k minus 29. And now I'm going to subtract 6k from both sides, and I'm going to get 2k, and then I'm going to add 29 to both sides, and I get 42. Divide by 2, and k equals 21. Now you can plug in k equals 21 into either, so either into here or into here. And if you do that, you should get x and y both equal 139 degrees. So now that we know that, I'm going to label it in red. Now, we talked about this earlier. See how y and z are on the inside of the sandwich? That means they're interior angles, and they're on the same side of the transversal, the blue. So they're same side interior angles. So same side interior angles are supplementary. We talked about that on another question earlier in the video. Supplementary means they add up to 180. College Panda has a great chapter on this called Angles. You should really check it out. So they must add up to 180. So the 139 from the y and the z must add up to 180. So we subtract 139 from both sides, and we get z equals 41 degrees. So z is 41. Great. Okay, so for this one, to figure out the slope of line P, we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. So we're going to get y by itself. So first we're going to subtract over the 18x. So 2y equals negative 18x plus 9. Now we're going to divide the whole thing by 2. So y equals negative 9x plus 9 over 2. And you see the slope is negative 9. So for perpendicular lines, see how it says that? Perpendicular. You have to know that the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So you flip it, and then you multiply by negative 1. I went over this in another video, but let's say you had a slope of 2/3. The opposite reciprocal would be 3/2, and then you multiply by negative 1, so negative 3/2. Okay, so for line R, the perpendicular slope, so the reciprocal would be negative 1/9, and then you multiply by negative 1, so it becomes positive 1/9. And if you're not having trouble seeing that, look, negative 9, I could write that as negative 9 over 1. So now I flip it, and I get negative 1/9, but now I multiply by negative 1, and I get positive 1/9. So that's what it means to do an opposite reciprocal. Anyway. So 8 is C. Okay, so you got to know the formula for a cube. Volume equals S cubed for a cube. So volume equals 0.9 cubed. So volume equals 0.729 meters cubed. And density equals mass divided by volume. Multiply both sides by volume, and I get dV equals mass, or mass equals density times volume. So they tell us the density is 807, and the volume we just calculated is 0.729. Put that in the calculator, and we get a mass of 588.303, and that is A. Yep. So, I mean, you could just do this using unit analysis, but it's probably easier if you just remember density equals mass divided by volume. That's just a formula you probably want to know in the SAT. They've asked it many times. Okay, so I just want to elaborate here. Remember that equation I was talking about before, y equals a times b to the t over n. So a is the starting amount, b is the growth size decay rate, and n is the interval. So I just want to point out here, what the heck is the 4/6 and the 18 months? So it doesn't matter. You don't need to know this to answer this question, but just in case this was important on another question, okay? So you could rewrite this to more closely match the formula as P of t equals 290, 1.04, t, instead of t times 4, 6, you could write it as t divided by 6 over 4, the reciprocal. So n is equal to 6 over 4, which is equal to 1.5 years. Because n, what you have to know is that n always has the same units as t. So t is in units of years, so n is in units of years. But in the question, it says 18 months. So what the heck is that? Well, 1.5 years is equal to 18 months. So it might seem like the 18 is important, but it doesn't matter. Like they're just telling you something that you already know, right? You see what I'm saying? Like it's not new information, and it doesn't matter. You don't need it to solve the question. So maybe it was just important to recognize that that was equal. Anyway, so if it asks you about the percent increase or decrease, that's asking you about b. So b is equal to the percent multiplier. So lots of people, they can just see this in their head, but in case you can't, so the percent multiplier is equal to 1 plus the decimal for an increase. For a decrease, it's 1 minus the decimal. So the percent multiplier is 1.04, which equals 1 plus the decimal. Subtract 1 from both sides, and we get the decimal equals 0.04. Now multiply by 100 to make it a percent, and the percent is 4%, and it's a 4% increase, which is answer choice C. So yeah, that so not only did they write it confusingly by making it multiplication, they converted to months, which isn't even relevant to the question. So they did that just to confuse us. And they also, why did they use 4/6? Why didn't they use 2/3? Like, I don't, that's driving me crazy. Like, why did they do that? That makes no sense. Like, they're always, they're always on you guys about simplifying things, right? Why don't they simplify it there? I don't get it. Anyway, like if that said 2/3, really, I think it would be more clear if they wrote it as t divided by 1.5, but at least put 2/3. I don't know. I'm getting off topic here. Let's go on. Okay, so we talked about this earlier in the video. When you have slope intercept, no solution means same slope, different y-intercept. So what you have to recognize is that the left side of the equation does not look like mx plus b. It doesn't. So what you're going to do is you're going to distribute. So 2kx minus 2n, you do 2 times kx and then 2 times minus n equals negative 25 over 15, negative 28 over 15, minus 36 over 19. Wow, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, you're just going to write the numbers down wrong from that, and that's going to make you get it wrong. So write that down really carefully, because I wrote it down the first time I did it, and I messed up. So okay, so different y-intercept, that doesn't really help us figure out what k is, but same slope, that does. Okay, so the slope on the left side is the coefficient of x, so 2k, and then, oops, I forgot the x. And then what's in front of the x over here? Negative 28 over 15. So you see how now this kind of looks like mx plus b, mx plus b. Okay, so we have 2k equals negative 28 over 15, and fraction math is confusing, but you can just type that on a calculator. So negative 28 over 15 divided by 2, and calculator tells me negative 14 over 15. You could do that very easily on Desmos as well, and it'll simplify it for you and everything. And they accept negative 0.9333, and they also accept negative 14 over 15. I don't know why you would bother rounding or truncating it when Desmos or your graphing calculator will just simplify it for you. So it may seem like decimals are easier, but really fractions are easier because the calculator can do it for you. The rounding and truncating, the calculator's not going to do for you. So, okay, great. So that one's good. And if that were a multiple choice question, we could have guessed and checked, but it wasn't. So, okay, so it says we got $7 for a wholesale price, and 290% of the wholesale price. So we're going to do the retail is equal to 290% of the wholesale price of 7. So we've done this a lot at this point. We change the percent to a decimal, 290 divided by 100. Do that on your calculator, that's 2.9. Of, you change the multiplication. Now you do 2.9 times 7, and you get 20.3. Now it says it's discounted at a price that is 80% off. So 80% off, that is a percent decrease. So we're going to do 20.3. The percent multiplier for a decrease is equal to 1 minus the decimal. So 80% off, that's 0.8 as a decimal. So the percent multiplier is 0.2. So you multiply this guy by 0.2. You go to the calculator and you get 4.06 for the discounted price after the retail. So the answer is 4.06. You could also change that to a fraction as 203 over 50. But because this decimal doesn't repeat, you could just put 4.06 and not have to worry about rounding it or anything. So if you get like 2.5 or 1.3 or 1.04, it's like you can just use the decimal. But if it's a repeating decimal, I would always use the fraction. So, all right, great. Okay, so this is testing us on the discriminant. I just went over this earlier in the video and in the previous videos, so please watch that. If the discriminant is less than 0, there's no real solutions. If the discriminant is equal to 0, there's one real solution. And if the discriminant is greater than 0, there's 2 real solutions. So A is 1, B is negative 34, and C is C. So now we're going to do D equals B squared minus 4AC. So D equals negative 34 squared minus 4. A is 1, and then C is just C. So we get D equals 1156 minus 4C. And now they said no real solution. So that means that it is negative, so less than 0. I made a table on this earlier in the video. Go back and watch it. And now we're going to get 4C. I'm going to move 4C to the other side. So add 4C. Now I'm going to flip it to get C on the left. So 4C is greater than 1156. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and we get C is greater than 289. And you see it says C is greater than N. So C is greater than N, and now you can see that N is 289. So N is equal to 289. So 289. Great, so that was just another discriminant question. All right. Okay, so mean, they ask lots of questions like this on the ACT, but this is kind of new for the SAT. They don't do this a lot. So mean is equal to sum divided by n. N is the sample size, it's the number of data values. So for data set A, they tell us that the mean is 32. They don't tell us the sum, and they tell us the number of data points is 75. So you can multiply both sides by 75, and you get the sum is equal to 2400. B, they tell us the mean is 62. They don't tell us the sum, but they tell us that there's 50 buildings. So 50, and you should get the sum is equal to 3100 if you multiply both sides by 50. Now for C, the mean is sum divided by n. So there's 125 buildings, so the bottom is 125. And then the combined data set you just add the two sums from A and B, right? So you would do 2400 plus 3100. Hopefully that feels intuitive. Yeah, lots of people, they don't realize you can do this part. They don't realize you can do this. So that's the thing you want to know how to do, is that maybe they give you the mean and the n, then you can find the sum. Sometimes they'll give you the mean and the sum, and then you can find the n, and then you're going to use that to solve the problem. So you see what I'm saying? So this is something you really want to know how to do. I'm not going to. They're probably going to ask this a lot in the future, or at least a fair amount. So if you type the bottom in the calculator, you should get 44. Hopefully I did that right. And the answer is 44. This one is really annoying. So we get, it's not really clear what you're supposed to do at first, in my mind, but you're supposed to match the coefficients, okay? So this guy stays the same, and then we get equals, so you're gonna FOIL. So hx times x, so hx squared outer. So hjx, we usually use alphabetical order. Hjx inner, kx, and then last. So k times j, or jk, alphabetical order. So we have 4x squared plus bx minus 45 equals hx squared plus, you can factor out the x, so hj plus kx plus jk. Now you can do what's called matching coefficients. So watch. The coefficients of x squared are 4 and h, so 4 must equal h. Now we look at the coefficients of x. So b and hj plus k, that's what's in front of the x's. So so b equals hj plus k. And then the constants, so that's minus 45 is equal to jk. So minus 45 is equal to jk. So now you kind of just have to like fiddle around and hope you realize something. And this is what they do in the answer key. And you have to keep in mind that they tell you h, k, and j are integers. So what they did is they isolated for j here. So you get, divide both sides by k, and you get j equals negative 45 over k. So the negative doesn't really matter. Integers can be negative or positive. It doesn't matter. So the question is 45 divided by k an integer? Well, it's equal to j, which is an integer. So if that's an integer, then this must be an integer. And you might be like, well, what about the minus sign? Well, like if I had 8 and negative 8, like they're both integers, right? Like, so yeah, anyway. So yeah, so it's D. I haven't really thought about this question that much. I don't know how you would know. Well, first of all, B, notice how it doesn't say B is an integer, it just says B is a constant. So you don't know if B is an integer. So like it could be a fraction or an irrational number. And a fraction or an irrational number divided by an integer is still a fraction or an irrational number. Um, so kind of the ones with B in it are just kind of wrong, just because B is not necessarily an integer. And at least that's what I think. And 45 divided by h, there's nothing in these equations here that relate 45 and h. As a matter of fact, we know h is 4, and 45 divided by 4, let's see what that is on a calculator, is 11.25, and integers have to be whole numbers. So like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, anything on the number line is an integer. So yeah, 11.25 isn't. Yeah, so I suppose you could use process elimination if you realize that b not being an integer is a problem. And then if you realize h is 4, then you figure out c, and then you just kind of use process elimination for d. But what they did was they held it up next to each other and said that they were, if one of them is an integer, the other one must be an integer. So hopefully that makes sense. Definitely make sure you know how to do this this foiling, and then also make sure you know how to do this step. It's called matching coefficients. There's a lot of books out there, but there's a pretty good chapter on this in the College Panda book. I know it seems like from this video that College Panda book is my favorite. It's not. It's actually my least favorite. But there's a really good chapter on there called "More Equation Solving Strategies," and they go over matching coefficients pretty well. So you might want to practice that. This has been on tests a lot. So, okay, tricky question. That was a tricky question. All right. So if this were multiple choice, we could guess and check, but it's not, so we can't. So for a linear quadratic system, what you do is you substitute. Notice how y and y are both by itself, so I can just set them equal. So x squared plus 8x plus a equals -1.5. Now I'm going to get them all to one side, so x squared plus 8x, and I'm going to add 1.5. So plus 1.5 plus a equals 0. So now A, B, C, so A equals 1, B equals 8, and C equals 1.5 plus A. That's the constant term. And maybe I should just go over that really quickly. So 1, 8, and then constant term is 1.5 plus A. So we're again going to use the discriminant because it's talking about how many solutions. So I went over it on the other previously in the video. So D equals B squared minus 4AC. Why don't I just go over it one more time? So when D is less than 0, there's no real solutions. When D is equal to 0, there's one real solution. And when D is greater than 0, there's two real solutions. And the equation is D equals B squared minus 4AC. And that equation is called the discriminant. So you definitely have to have this memorized going into the exam. Or maybe stored somewhere on your calculator, but you know, I'm not going to judge you. Okay, so all right, so we start plugging in, and we get, okay, so b squared, so 8 squared minus 4a is 1, and c is 1.5 plus a. So you start cleaning that up, and you should get 64 minus 4 times 1.5 is 6, and then minus 4a. So it's equal to 58 minus 4a. And then it says it has exactly one distinct real solution. So that means one real solution. That means the discriminant is equal to 0. So we're going to set it equal to 0. And we get add 4a, and we get 4a equals 58. Divide both sides by 4, and we get 58 divided by 4, which is 14.5. Not a repeating decimal, so I'm fine just using the decimal. But if you put that in a calculator and simplify it, it'll tell you 29 over 2. So either of those is fine. I don't know. When it's not a repeating decimal, I'm fine using the decimal. But when it is a repeating decimal, I'm too lazy to round or truncate, so I just use the calculator and to simplify. So you can do that on Desmos or your TI-84 very easily. Okay, great. So this is a very, if you're studying for the tests, odds are you've seen this question before at this point. So you should know how to do this. It's like, it's a hard question, but it's a very straightforward question. Like, it's not trying to trick you in any way. It's just difficult. It's not like a word problem where you have to figure it out. Like this, you should just know what to do. You substitute, get it all to one side, and then use the discriminant. That's what you do. This is called a linear quadratic system with a constant in it. Okay, great. Okay, we talked about this in the other video, so because this was a problem on the earlier section, module 2a, I believe. So if you add 56 to each number, if you add or subtract a number, the measures of center are gonna change. They're gonna get bigger. So the median is gonna get bigger. So the median of the new data set is bigger. So the measures of center, so like mean and median, go up. But when you add a number, um, measures of spread like range and standard deviation, those stay the same. It's different when you multiply by a number, but let's see if we ever get a question like that before we talk about that. Okay, this is one of the first times they've asked something like this. Okay, and the ranges stay the same. So the range of B is equal to the range of A. So you see that would give us answer choice C. The median is greater and the range is equal. So just as an example, this is something you can do, right? When you're not sure what to put, you could think of a simpler problem. So this is what I did on the other one. I think I did 1, 2, 3, and then I added 5, so 6, 7, 8. So you see how the median of this one is 2, and the range is max minus min, so 3 minus 1, which is also 2. And then here, the median is 7. Oh, so the median went up, but the range is 8 minus 6. So that stayed the same. So that's another way you could have kind of thought about it to figure it out. You could have thought of a simpler problem. That's a great problem solving skill, is think of a simpler problem. Okay, great. So that's it. So when you add or subtract a number, the mean, the measures of center, those change, but the measures of spread do not. I think, don't quote me on this, if you multiply it by a number, they all change. So mean and median change, and then range and standard deviation change. So don't quote me on that though, because I'm not thinking about it right now. Okay, so man, this is a hard question. They did it a little bit differently. They plugged in a bunch of points. What I think makes this one easier. So we have f of x equals a over x plus b. What I think makes this one easier is if you recognize that there's pretty clearly a vertical asymptote here. You can kind of tell by looking at the answer choices too. There's a vertical asymptote here. It's never going to cross that. So that's at x equals -4. So when you have a vertical asymptote, that means the denominator is equal to 0. So the denominator, when you plug in -4, should give you 0. And the only way for that to happen is if the denominator were x plus 4 or some variation of that. So if you plug in -4, you see we get divide by 0 error, and that means we have a vertical asymptote. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the quick and dirty way of thinking about it. Okay, so now you could plug in a point. So I don't know, -5, -6, maybe that one. So -6 equals a. over a negative 5 plus 4. So you get -1, and then you multiply both sides by -1, and you get a equals 6. So the function is 6 over x plus 4, and that's what you needed to recognize. And you could now graph that on Desmos or on your graphing calculator just to confirm that you did it right. Okay, so now g of x equals f of x plus 4. So now you're going to take x, and wherever you see it, replace it with x plus 4. So let me rewrite this here. So wherever you see an x, you replace it with this input, the x plus 4. So watch what I do. So g of x equals 6 over x plus 4 plus 4. And 4 plus 4 is just 8. So you can write that as 6 over x plus 8. And that is the answer. Little bit of a pain having to find the equation of that line. I don't know why they didn't just give that to you. But yeah, I think even in the solution, they don't recognize the asymptote and do what I just taught you. And they plug in 2 points, and that's much slower than what I just showed you. So anyway, so always try to look out for vertical asymptotes. Remember, vertical asymptotes will always give you a divide by 0 error, at least on the SAT. That's about as, it's more complicated than that, but that's about as good as you need to understand it. So okay, so for this one, it says the product of the solutions is KAB. So to solve this question, you have to know, and this is really important for any quadratic equation, the sum of solutions, and this is the one they usually ask about, is minus b over a. But the product of solutions is c over a. They love testing on these. You really got to know them. Lots of kids don't even know them because they don't go over them in school. So the sum of solutions is negative b over a. The product of solutions is c over a. So pause this video, take a second to write that down. Okay, so product of solutions equals c over a. So you see c is this guy, and a is this guy, and the product is KAB. So we're going to write KAB equals AB over 57. And we can actually divide both sides by AB. And they both go away. And this is really important. When you clear a numerator, you can't just say 57. Lots of kids would do that, but I want you to appreciate that you can't just have them switch sides. You can't do that. You can't do that. You're changing the expression. So whenever you clear a numerator, you always got to remember to put a 1. It's 1 over 57. Okay. Like I can't just be like, hey, 1/2, and then be like, all right, that 2, that's the same, right? No, they're not. They're not the same. 1/2 and 2 are completely different values, right? So if you did all that work and you got 57, man, that stinks. But now you know in the future, don't do that. So whenever you clear a numerator, you have to put a 1. So you see this, right? You see this right here? We had to put a 1 there, not a 0, and then somehow magically put the 57 from the bottom to the top. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't just let a number switch sides on the division bar just because you feel like it. You can't do that. Okay. All right. So the answer is 1 over 57. Very honestly, right? Like, very straightforward question if you knew this equation. If you did not know this equation, no chance, like 0 chance, like no way you can do it. Anyway. Okay, 20. So for this one, you have to know the equation of the circle. I wrote this earlier in the video. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where h comma k is the center and r is the radius. So pause this video for a second and take a chance to write that down. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to make this equation look like that. So um, first thing you do is you check to see if there's any coefficients in front of the x squared and the y squared. If there are, let's say there's a 2 in front of the x squared and y squared, you divide the whole equation by 2. This one, we don't have to worry about that because there's a 1. So you put the x's together, you leave a little bit of space, you put the y's together, you leave a little bit of space, and then you move the constant to the other side. Okay, good. So now what you do is called completing the square. So you add b over 2 squared to both sides. B is the coefficient of x or the coefficient of y. So for this one, b is 1. So I'm going to do b divided by 2, that's 1/2, and then I'm going to square it 1/4. And then I add 1/4 to the right side. Whatever I do to the left side, I got to do the right side. Now I do it for the y. So b again is 1. So 1/2, b divided by 2, 1/2, and then I square it 1/4. It's always going to be positive. And then I add 1/4 to this side. Uh, Now I'm just going to add that up on my calculator. 199 over 2 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, and I get 100. And now you factor these guys, and if you did it right, they should be perfect squares. So the left one factors to x plus 1/2 squared, and the right one factors to y plus 1/2 squared. So the center is this one and this one, but you got to remember to multiply by -1 because there's a minus in the equation. So multiply by -1, multiply by -1. So the center is -1/2, comma -1/2. They didn't ask you that. I'm just going over that in case it was a future question. And this right side is r squared. So this is r squared. So what you do to get r is you take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 100 is 10. So the radius is 10. Okay, there's a couple ways you could figure this out using the graphing calculator. For starters, if you have a graphing calculator program that can solve these equations, you can just type it in. So I'm going to rewrite it as x squared plus y squared plus x plus y minus 199 over 2 equals 0. And then I'm going to type it into my graphing calculator. So let's do that. So I have the Panda SAT program from College Panda. And I might try to get a more or make my own more robust program, but been too busy. So go to circles, equation of circle, that's what this is. And then raw equation, that's the one in the problem. So you see, you can just type in, so I'm going to do 1, 1, and then C is -199 divided by 2. Okay, it tells me the center is -1/2, -1/2, and the radius is 10. Good. Okay, that was a very easy way to do it. Now let's look at Desmos. So Desmos is only kind of helpful because, I mean, you kind of just have to like eyeball things, but I'm going to show you a trick that I discovered that I think is really helpful for these. And this is gonna, you have to think a little bit, but it's really not that much work. Okay, so the question is, what is the radius? And unfortunately, you can't like label. Oh, you can. Holy smokes. I think I just cracked this. Oh, that's because yeah. So it plots the max of every graph as a point of interest, and it plots the min of every graph as a point of interest. So you see the y coordinate. Oh, it hides it. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, well, the y coordinates are 9.5 and negative 10.5. So 9.5 minus negative 10.5. And I get 20. So that's the diameter, and the diameter is 20 divided by 2. So yeah, you actually can just use Desmos to do this without knowing how to do it. The left and right, and watch too, you could do it left and right if you wanted to too. See how if I click on it, and then if I drag, it locks in place when you get to the leftmost one. It won't highlight it, but it'll lock it in place. And then I could go over here and go, okay, negative 10.5. I could go, okay, oh, 9.5. Oh, the distance between those two, if I subtract them, is, and take the absolute value, is 20. And then that's a diameter, right? Because the diameter goes through the whole center. And that gives you um, 20. And you could also use these coordinates to figure out the center as well. So you could use the midpoint formula to figure out the center. So yeah, you really don't need to do the completing the square to answer these kinds of questions anymore because you got Desmos. So yeah, I think what's really easy is the top and bottom. So you can use like north and south or east and west. I would go north and south because then you can highlight them and write them down on your paper. So you go, oh, okay, so it's from 9.5 to 10.5. So 9.5 minus negative 10.5, that's 20, divide by 2, 10, done. If you knew that, probably like a 30-second question. And you don't have to worry about messing up completing the square, which is really hard for a lot of kids. So yeah, oh my God, we just kind of trivialized this question. I mean, sure, you had to think, okay, I got to subtract them and divide by 2. And then if you do find the center this way, you do need to know how to do a midpoint. So you add them up and divide by 2. But that's probably still way easier than completing the square. So for lots of kids. So really helpful. Glad we discovered that. Okay, anyway. Okay, these last two questions, the last two questions of Module 2B are always just such a headache. These are harder than any questions on the paper SAT. I'm going to do my best to explain them. So we have rectangular prisms with bases that are a square. So I'm going to do my best to draw that. Really not great. So the square is S and S are the sides, and then the up and down is the height, which is H. Okay. So the surface area of any rectangular prism, um, you might just want to know this, honestly. Let me look it up really quick. I know what it is, but I just want to write it down so I don't have to worry so much. So it's 2WL plus 2HL plus 2HW. So you might want to just write that down and know that because I have seen this tested before, unfortunately. Surface area of a rectangular prism. Rectangular prism. Length, width, and height. So pause this video, write that down. Anyway, so we can figure out that the surface area formula, it's this guy is s squared, and there's two of them, right? So 2s squared and this guy, this side length is s times h. And if you go around, there's four of them. So this would be 4sh. Like if you had like a rectangular prism, like I don't know, what's something you ever that has a rectangular prism? I don't know, your calculator or something. Like it has four lateral faces, so that's why we're multiplying by 4. And it says that the surface area is equal to k. It also says the height is equal to 90, so I'm going to plug in the 90 for the height. And I might have done this a little bit different than the answer key, but still, this is what made the most sense to me. So 2s squared plus 360s equals k. Now, because that's the surface area of each prism. Now, the surface area of the new prism, think about it. You've got two prisms, so the total surface area of the two of them is 2k. But then if you glue them together, right, you kind of, there's a square base and a square base that no longer count towards the surface area. So you're losing 2 times the area of a square base. So you subtract those. And it says the result of that is 92 over 47k. So I'm going to move the 2 times area of a square over here and then flip it. And then I'm going to move this guy over here and then flip it. So 2k minus 92. So just 2 minus 92 over 47 on my calculator. That's 2 over 47. So it gives you 2 over 47k. So now I can divide both sides by 2 and I get the area of the square is 1 over 47k, or k over 47. I can multiply both sides by 40, and the area of the square is s squared. And I can multiply both sides by 47, and I get 47 s squared equals k. And now, oh, this is great. So now I have k and k, so I can substitute. So 47 s squared equals 2s squared plus 360s. Get everything to one side. I'm going to move everything to the left side. And I get 45s squared minus 360s equals 0. And now you can either, I just plugged it in a graphing calculator, but you could factor this if you wanted to. Let's take out 45s. And then what's left? What's 360 divided by 45? 8. So you get s minus 8. So the two solutions are s equals 0 and s equals 8. But you can't have a 0 length. So the answer is 8. So the answer is B. Wow, that was a very confusing question. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure if I did it the most direct way, but this was the best I could come up with. So the pretty hard part was coming up with this. Okay. But you see, all I did was kind of just count the sides and add them up, right? So that wasn't too bad. But this part, I'm going to put this in red. This part was really hard. Like, okay, so K and K. So together they have a total surface area of 2. And then if I glue them together, you see I have to take away the two faces that are touching. So we lose 2 squares. That's where that comes from. The touching faces, we take away 2 of those, of that whatever that face is. And then that gives you the result. And then that's a lot of tricky fraction math. However, you don't have to know how to do fraction math anymore because you got a calculator the whole time. So, all right, very tricky question. And now let's do this guy. Actually, this one isn't as bad. So first, let's recognize that the vertex is 9, -14. So that's somewhere down here in this quadrant. And it's in order for it to be intersecting the x-axis at 2 points, it must be facing up, right? If it was facing down, it would never touch it, right? So this tells you, if it's facing up, this tells you that a is greater than 0. That's just something you have to know. If a is less than 0, it's facing down. If a is greater than 0, it's facing up. That's just something you should know. You have to have that memorized. Okay, so now what we're going to do is you should also have vertex form memorized. So y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So we're going to plug in the vertex. So we don't know a, but we know h is 9. So we're going to do x minus 9. And then k is -14. So plus -14, or in other words, just minus 14. And now we're going to get this in standard form so we can figure out stuff about a plus b plus c. So y equals a times x squared minus 18x plus 81 if you FOIL that, and then minus 14, and then we get ax squared minus 18ax plus 81a minus 14. So the sum, I'm just going to call it the sum. Well, fine, I'll put a plus b plus c. So a plus b plus c is this is a. This guy is b, bx. And this guy is c. So we get a plus -18a plus 81a minus 14. And if you combine all those like terms, I'm just going to call it the sum from now on. The sum, you get 64a minus 14. Now, what they had you do here was, in the answer key, they had you compare all of these to 64a minus 14 and solve for a and see if it's greater than 0 or not. Now, there's a faster way if you can think logically a little bit. So let's graph, just to illustrate this to you, let's graph 64x minus 14. Okay, so this line is very steep, but you see it's getting bigger. It's going up, right? So if a or x is greater than 0, that means a is getting bigger. And if a is getting bigger, the sum is getting bigger. And illustrate that for yourself. You know, plug in 1, 64 times 1 minus 14. Then plug in like 3, 64 times 3 minus 14. It's getting bigger as a gets bigger, right? So if you plug in a is equal to 0, you get a sum of minus 14. So if a must be bigger than 0, and if we make a 0.001, it'll make the sum like just very slightly bigger than minus 14. So the sum, and this is how I would have solved it, not what the answer key said, but you kind of can deduce using logic that the sum must be greater than minus 14. And now you just use process elimination much faster. So I go, okay, that's not greater than minus 14. That's not greater than minus 14. That's not greater than minus 14. Oh, this one is. So minus 12 is greater than minus 14. You could also do what they did and do like -23 equals 64a minus 14, and then figure out what a is, and then do it for b, and then do it for c. But that takes a lot longer. So, however, a lot of the people who actually have a chance at getting this one right, they probably have tons of time. So they have tons of time to play around with this. And that's what I want you guys to do, right? I want you to take notes, to have these equations fresh in your mind and to use Desmos to do the questions faster. So that way you have like maybe 3 or 4 minutes per question to do these last two questions because you've saved so much time from the other ones. So, okay, anyway. So yeah, if a is greater than 0, then the sum must be greater than minus 14 because um, at a equals 0, the sum is minus 14. So it must be bigger than that because it's increasing, right? Okay, great. This concludes Module 2B. Time for the outro. Okay, that completes the walkthrough for this exam. I hope you found my video helpful. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I will be posting solutions to every single digital SAT math question and every single digital PSAT math question. If you are interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor all sections of the SAT, and I also tutor all math subjects from about 7th grade math to AP/early college level math. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.